Hello and welcome to the Delirium engine, where we take, or at least where this series, where we take a series of rules I wrote in university and we analyze them and try to discover if they were true or not. P.S. They're true. Today I have with me two guests, one new and one not so new. I have Swampy, as we all know, hot from his banishment 2 weeks ago. Were you here last week?
Yeah.
Okay.
Dagwood, remember?
Yeah, you were with Dagwood. Okay, so yeah, hot from your awesome podcast with Dagwood.
Banished to the Shadow Realm.
Banished to the Shadow Realm. And then we also have with us the Barbarian himself.
Hello.
And so let's get right into it. Just to go over it once more, this is, like I said, is a series that goes over a series of rules. In this case, the 7 rules for GMs. This is episode 4. And we will be discussing, of course, the 4th rule. Previously, we discussed setting, system, and plot. So this one is going to be probably character. Yeah, it's probably the worst things. I'll get into the rule specifics as we go. So just to recap for people who are new, the Barbarian, if we're doing arguments that consist of things like, if you have a good group, or if the DM says so, don't count, because they're not arguments, they're the lack of arguments. Everything works with a good group, everything works badly with a bad GM.
Naturally.
Yeah. With that said, though, I can't think of anything else I need to say in the intro. Let's just get right into it. So, today's rule is rules for successful GMs. Rule 3. Should be Rule 4. Rule 4. Your characters are not cooler than theirs. Stop showing them off. So, I'm just going to go ahead. Does everybody agree with this rule? Or are there points to be made?
I have 1 point.
Okay. So, I guess we'll get into that point in just a second. Once again, like I've done in the past, we have notepads and pencils. So, we don't have to interrupt each other. We can just write down what we want to say and make points. Whether you use it or not is up to you. So, this rule, and I'll just summarize sort of the thinking behind this rule before we get into any counterpoints, and then we might change it up a bit, because barring this 1 point, I was of the understanding that we more or less agreed on this, and we don't need to be just sitting here agreeing with each other for roughly an hour. But this rule sort of touches on the idea that GMs become extremely attached to their own characters, and they start thinking that their NPC characters become more essential to a plot than the characters that are playing the game. Mm-hmm. And this is something you see a lot in plot-centric GMing. And because you can control it's lazy because you can control your NPCs, but you can't control your players. And this is also something you see in very early GMs that don't want to really be GMing, but instead want to play. And the cringy trope of a GM basically playing a PC alongside his other players. This is if I could 100 times underline a rule as being wrong, it would be don't make your own personal characters and play them with the party
type of thing.
Yeah. I remember, just to go off on a slight tangent, I remember many times in my gaming career, whenever someone would unleash a character like this into our party, the first thought is, how do I kill him as quickly and as efficiently as possible? Even if it makes the GM cry.
Well, I think you'd almost want to do that out of spite.
Well, yeah, it's the entire thing. It's like, okay, so you've released your 20 levels higher than the party, riding a black dragon, 6 beautiful wives, all, powerful sorceresses and priestesses in their own right.
He is the most fertile man in the land.
Yeah. And see, that was one of my points, was that you have to avoid making NPCs that are perceived as a threat or a challenge to the party. It's to combat that whole "you think you're better than me" attitude. Because players will get that. When you make a character and are a player, you get some sort of butthurt attachment to this character, and you don't want them to die. And I know we just talked the other night about my character Jax, who was killed by another party member. But yeah, he absolutely would have been the first to been slap down any NPC who thinks he's better than him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's also a character. That's also a character trait of the PC, right? The thing that I kind of agree with you in the sense where not having. I don't think you can make an abundance of characters that are threats or threats are kind of take the limelight from the party. But I think when you have an NPC that is supposed to be the antagonist or one of the many antagonists, having something that is perceived as a threat or something that is almost that foreshadowing of this is the guy that will like one-handedly wreck your entire group because he is a master wizard or something, like having that, producing that narrative can be essential for atmosphere, for storytelling. But I get what you're saying in that sense, because especially like if you think about the psychology behind your players, if you know that someone is playing a character properly that is not really fearful of danger and wants to go for a challenge, like your character Jax, it's like if I threw in the challenge character, I would know for a fact that you as a player are going to venture across the aisles to bash that man's face in.
Correct.
Yet you are level 5 and this is a say level 15 challenge, right?
Yeah.
So I have to really kind of map that out mentally, like kind of the psychology behind it.
Yeah, and see, I'm not talking exactly threats as in actual in-game threats. I'm talking like threats to masculinity or cool factor of the not the character but of the player themselves, because there is that inherent ego attached to something that you created.
Yeah, you can't. I don't think you can make a NPC that is meant, like NPCs are meant to coerce the story along, possibly guide the players depending on and inform them, create atmosphere. But they're certainly not meant to overshadow the players, their triumphs, because the game is supposed to be, from what I believe, like about the players, not just like primarily the players, not the setting, not the like the setting doesn't necessarily give into the players, where if the players go off and want to do drinking games in a bar for the next month, well, the war is still going on, so too bad, so sad. The war doesn't stop because you want to get drunk. But the things where the play it is always zooming, it is always a lens on the players, and it is never really a lens on the NPCs, though the NPCs are perfectly fine going off doing their own things, creating their plots, doing whatever, right? Because the world doesn't stop just because you want it to.
No, see, and that's what I was going to touch on too when you were talking, was that NPCs in and of themselves are people of the world that you've created.
Exactly.
So they have their own goals, motivations, they have what have you of the category. And if they choose to lie or cheat the party, then you get players that are going to be upset about that, obviously. But I mean, that's the NPC's prerogative. Like, you can't just have cardboard cutout NPCs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So it sounds like we're sort of in agreement.
Yes.
I have a point just from the discussion here, and then if we run out of points and we just start sounding like we're patting each other on the back, I'll change gears and we'll see what we can do.
I admire your intellect, friend. Oh, I admire yours.
You're so clever.
This circle has a big arm.
But okay, so just to sort of push back on the rule, I guess, a little bit, and what you guys were saying. Well, what if the NPC, right, the one that might be an offending NPC, is placed there doing these things on purpose? So, for example, the NPC shouldn't be overshadowing people. So you, as a GM, have put this NPC in who overshadows the party. He's just like, I'm super cool, Grand Paladin awesome sauce, right? And the PCs are like, we're going to, and Grand Paladin's like, stand back, I will fight the dragon. and he just shits all over, excuse my language, poops all over their cool. Is this okay? You're doing it on purpose.
No.
Really? You don't think so?
I would say no. I've had scenarios as the one you're describing where I've created a very fleshed out, very kind of OP NPC character to go along with an inexperienced party I've been GMing for, and it's basically, it turns into let's just coast and let so and so do the work.
He's the meat wagon.
Yeah, he's the meat wagon at that point, and like no one's getting experience, no one's getting levels because they're just letting Rornar the Destroyer do things for them.
But let's take a situation where, let's say Rornar the Destroyer, right? He takes the job, and the party's like, we took that job too. We want that gold. No, we need that gold because we're impoverished and we are hungry and we are tired. So then they get in. They go through the dungeon. They take the separate path, whereas Rornar has taken the other. Now, Rornar, whatever. We know he's going to be at the end of the dungeon because maybe that's how we read it. Or maybe Rornar gets into some heinous trap that he is now deterred by. The party may have to free him. Okay, cool. That feels good. But let's say Rornar gets to the end and he slays the dragon. The party has their weapons drawn. They enter the archway and they see Rornar standing over the Dracolich's like dismembered bones.
Well, this thing's the Dracolich now.
Yeah, and Rornar one-handed it.
Yeah,
so
it
now,
upgraded as he killed the dragon and then it came back. And
Exactly.
then he killed it again.
Exactly. And that's how good Rornar is.
Yeah.
Now they sit there, and to me, as a party member, maybe except for one of my stock PCs, who's like a pacifist, would be so inherently pissed.
Yeah, you would feel cheated, right?
Yeah, but then I would plot to kill Rornar.
Oh, of course.
Yeah,
Because
but that's-
Rornar has now, by his own traits, become the antagonist.
And that's the thing, though. So you have this Gaston character, this like chiseled chin, Bruce Campbell looking, handsome bastard of a man.
Yeah. Nobody fights like Radnar.
Exactly. But but that's the thing now and like your character snaps. It's like, no, I got to end this man because this man's renown is too much, and I want to be the guy, right? So you create that jealous streak. That is to me is almost a brilliant way of creating an antagonist.
Yeah, and structurally speaking, I mean, that's the natural flow of what the party's going to do because that's where the XP is now, is in destroying Rornar the Destroyer.
Exactly, because the thing is, like, if Rornar the Destroyer is the best monster hunter in the world, like, that's your competition, right? Yeah. Whereas also they're running into a moral conundrum because now they're trying to murk a paladin who may be a lawful good character. And meanwhile, the cleric of Kord is sitting there jealous that the paladin of Bahamut, and therein lies some more struggle. Yeah. So you have rhyme and reason.
So what it sounds like is being said is like this is kind of okay up until the PCs start using him as a I don't want to play engine.
Yeah.
Or
they're just riding the bus at that point.
Yeah, or as we've sort of agreed to before, you're using it as a personal I'm the GM, here's my gratification engine.
Yeah. I'm playing against myself.
Well, I also wouldn't make Rornar part of the party. I would never at any point, if I were to make the bulldozer paladin, and he is going out solving dungeons and freeing the people, I would never make him part of the party because, you know what? I think the party, unless it's like some backwater apprentice who wants to be a wizard and you decided to throw a random NPC that's like, say, 3 levels lower than the rest of the party, that's one thing. But at the same time, though, like having hireling or casual NPCs to be used because, say, you have like a party of 3 and you need somebody, or you want to, they find a waylaid warrior in a dungeon. Like, you make him an NPC, but at the same time, though, you let the players direct the NPC, right?
So that was sort of my next point.
He's like a familiar.
The new
familiar.
point that the new point that I sort of came up with just while you were talking here, just as we go. So like any PCs that are in the NPCs that are in the party, like, are these okay? Do you think that they're okay?
If used properly, yes.
Okay. And improperly is once again.
So long as they're not in a leadership role, I would say.
And you know what? Like, I think it's all about limelight. Like, I had a situation where there was a character called Borgos Wagons, and he was a pirate captain, he led the crew, but the thing is that the crew were doing consistent away missions, right? So the crew had autonomy. The crew had these things, right? Mm-hmm. And the thing is that obviously there was a degree of democracy to it. So just because the captain said something doesn't mean you can't interact with the captain and argue. Maybe you could have mutinied the captain. The thing is that that's where that kind of open world player choice thing is allowed. the thing is that I don't, as a DM, I would never be, if someone's like, I poison Borgo's drink, and I want to say that he is a drunkard and he is ill, and I need to take control of the ship. I would. It's an option. I'm not gonna, as a DM, get huffy because you murked my my NPC. Because like anything else, if I throw Black Razor in my campaign, right, and it's used by a Death Knight, then if someone kills the Death Knight and takes Black Razor, I can't be pissed because I decided to throw that in there. If whatever NPC or kingdom, if the kingdom burns to the ground, these are metaphysical objects I'm throwing into a setting that have the ability to be used against me or destroyed. Simple as that.
Brooks much tampering.
Brooks must tamper. Sorry if I'm if I'm over talking.
No, absolutely.
No,
You're making
these are open discussions.
Yeah,
if we think you're
valid
talking too much, we'll just interrupt you.
Sounds good.
Okay, so I guess to summarize, yeah, your characters are not cooler than theirs. Stop showing them off.
Yeah.
That's it, pretty much. Okay, so I guess then I'll switch gears a bit. Seeing as how we all agree with this, let's just try to attack the rule, right? Let's see if we can figure out a situation. Let's see if we can find situations where your characters are cooler than the PCs or need to be cooler than the PCs, and you need to show that off.
Well, if you design and throw out, say, Master Swordsman's out there, say you're doing like say you're doing a setting where you throw out a Master Swordsman. He's wandering the land looking for a challenge, right? And this is something that has been renowned and foretold. The issue is that if you don't hype up that guy properly enough, the players aren't going to want to meet him. Also, if you don't stat him well enough, the players are going to be disappointed that they hit him in the face with a cudgel, and there you go. And I've had those things with where I exactly, right. So,
Oh, you killed the Master
So just
Swordsman.
to clarify here, what you're essentially saying is that your antagonists should be cooler than the party.
and it's possibly not even just antagonists, like say protagonists, where say you have let's say they befriend Ronar the Destroyer or whatever his name is, and you know what, that's all well and good. So they befriended him, and because you know what, they realize he's a strong ally, right? And let's say the palace is now under siege, right? Because they sound their trumpet to summon Ronar the Destroyer because he has a magic ear on top of his chiseled chin, and he's able to hear that as long as you blow it, because you are able to request his aid, and his horse somehow rides faster than any other horse, and he makes the 6-day travel in a day and a half.
He just travels dimensions.
Exactly.
Just pops into
Dimension
existence.
door, whatever. And so he does that, and now you're like, I got a badass paladin, Ronan the Destroyer, on my team. That's all well and good. So they can possibly use that to, say, push challenges in a different direction. That's all well and good.
That's almost like a summon. Like from old Final Fantasy games.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
I guess new Final Fantasy games. Like that's like summon. You basically, Ragnar is now like Odin, and you're just like,
I was thinking that.
boom, summon Odin. He comes in,
And
helps
see,
you out a bit, and
I
leaves.
still don't like that, because that again sounds like this is too hard, let's call Ronan.
And I get that, but I think there's situations too where if you set up a game where the players obviously are going to create bonds with NPCs, right? Mm-hmm. There was a game I played of a friend of mine's, and he set it up so that we had interactions with other people. We did quests for them. They sometimes joined us on the quests as NPCs, and we were able to control them, and they hit things with their swords, whatever. And at the end, there was a final battle, like a strategic battle, where we had to take them and place them around the board and use them. And because we had to use them, we understood their abilities. The more we used them, not necessarily the better they got, but the better we got with them. And because the challenge rating was beyond us, and it was actually about a situation where you had it was about bonding, it was about increasing your renown, it was about creating friendships, and it encouraged the players to interact with the NPCs instead of just effing off and doing whatever they wanted.
Okay, so thinking about this summoning thing that you're mentioning, like sort of like this we can call a dude in, or he's our buddy and he'll come and help us. Like in that situation though, are they really cooler than the PCs, because the PCs are they're working on the behest of the PCs. So I can only assume that the PCs feel like they're pretty cool guys.
Yeah.
When they're just like, Grognar, come on in here and do this. And he's like, you guys are cool enough. I'll come in and help you out on this. Also, they've earned the respect of this character, right? So wouldn't that mean that in this case, the PCs are cooler than that character? Because that character's, for lack of a better term in the middle of my head, cucking himself to these characters.
See, and to interject here on that point, I would again say no. Because, like, if I couldn't do something as a player and had to call in Ronan the Destroyer or Grognar or whoever, I'd be like, aw, I suck, but that guy's cool.
Well, I think if you could tier it in a way where, as a DM, like thinking about it, if I could put it in a situation where you have the option of calling him, but you don't gain enough as reward. Like let's say reward as renown, right? So the thing is that I want to earn favor with the people. I want to be able to fend off the orc insurgents into this village, but I got the Ronar button, and I can press the Ronar button. He'll come a calling, but I don't want to do that because of that, right? And you have this situation where I would reward you more with more renown. The people know your name. They don't know Ronar's name anymore because now you've ascended as a true warrior of one who can defend themselves with independence and grace, right?
I think your argument, Mr. the Barbarian, I think it assumes that the players aren't going to grow. And this is, hear me out. So, Grognar, we'll say, because I can't think of a better good barbarian name. Grognar gets summoned, he does his thing, the PCs win, they use their MacGuffin, great. They get their experience, they get their treasure, they get more powerful, a little bit more fame. Next battle happens, they summon him again. Grognar shows up. It's a little bit tougher for Grognar this time. PCs win, things go on. But like as the game progresses, Grognar's not getting stronger.
No.
And eventually there'll come a point where in this narrative, you'll find yourself on the same level, and he's just a dude. He's just an extra guy for you.
Yeah.
And then eventually, he'll just be a guy that you don't really want to summon. Like, or you do want to summon. He's like, yeah, he's been helping us in the past. But you'll find yourselves as the players, because you'll be always comparing yourself to this Grognar character or whatever, right? You might find yourselves better than him. And being all like, thanks, we really needed your help there.
Yeah.
Have a nice day. And he'll be like, so long, French heroes. Or, so long, heroes.
Now, see, my point to touch on that would be, in that scenario, I would think Grognar is inhibiting growth. Because he's stepping in when the players are too weak, instead of them using their own skills, their own strengths to their advantage. They're just, again, calling on someone else. And that inhibits growth because then they're like, well, we can just coast because Grognar's got it.
Oh, I think that also implies that these are challenges that are specifically tailored for single parties. Like, it's like, oh, we are fighting one problem. Yeah. Well, maybe you're fighting two problems, and you need to call Grognar to deal with one while you deal with a second one.
And that's
or you have all of these guys, and it turns into almost like a video game kind of thing. Like, assume there's more than one of these super cool NPCs, and you're just like, this guy knows, like, we need someone to deal with the bridge. It's like, well, we'll call the Mermaidia or whatever, and like she'll deal with that. And like,
see, that kind of touches on what Swampy was saying when he had like different NPCs that they all kind of became kindred with, and the party was the party plus them, and they were using their NPC allies' skills to do different things. That to me becomes some sort of game inception, where you're not just playing your character, you're playing additional.
You're directing.
Yeah, and I don't like that either, because that also inhibits growth, because now you got to think, okay, well, what's Mermaidia growing into, and what am I growing into? And if you think Mermaidia is cooler on the off chance, then you're going to be more focused.
And you may want to play Mermaidia, I guess. Yeah. So that does make sense too, right?
Well, with this particular instance, there was the party, and then there was the abundance of NPCs we developed a relationship with, right? Mm-hmm. We had to unify them all, and we had to defend a point that was far beyond a party of 4, right? So with this scenario, we could do this alone, but it was certain death, because it was almost a humbling experience for the players, but it was also an experience where we had invested into these NPCs and made sure that we established these amazing bonds. They had helped us with things, and we had saved them. So like, obviously there's degrees of attachment, and some of the NPCs died. So it created this, like when one of the NPCs that I helped saved died, like personally as a person, and like from my character's perspective, because he was a lawful good, I was pissed.
Yeah.
Like I was,
The bonds of friendship have been broken.
exactly, and that creates such a powerful. That is using an NPC and their death, not just as a tool to create this feeling of narrative and this. I thought they Alec, the DM at the time, did that brilliantly, and it wasn't actually playing like, say, dice roll Dungeons and Dragons with stats, but it was more of a I'm going to say like almost like an RTS or strategy RPG, so it was like a mini game, but it fit well, and I liked how it was used, because it didn't just seem like it was a slog of rolling a bunch of dice, etc., because it was a compressed version of it.
Okay, so what I'm sort of hearing here, between the lines, is that these cool NPCs really are never going to be cooler, and even if you do have these summoning guys, you know, the only way to really make this worthwhile is to make it temporary. So if you have a permanent, like, I summon Graknar Stone, the game, from a GM standpoint, and maybe it will affect the player's ability to solve problems.
Yeah.
Now, I think as a GM, like, my response would be, as a GM, it doesn't matter how strong or weak these players think they are, you can always make challenges that will befit the powers that they have. So if they have a summoning stone that summons Graknar, you know, giving them 2 problems suddenly just solves that issue, right? And like, they get to pick what problem they want to solve and what problem they want Graknar to solve.
Yeah.
And that could be cool too. But like, it seems in those cases, though, we can sort of come to an agreement. Like, that's sort of a DM style kind of thing.
That is.
And that's not touching on the characters being cooler. Because Graknar, yeah, he's more powerful, but is he really cooler? Or are you favoring this Graknar character over the rest of your PCs? Because you're giving them the option to summon him in this scenario.
Yeah. In the scenario that you're suggesting, again, where like, just going back to what you said about character growth and Ragnar's just staying the same throughout, I would say to a point he's cooler until the party surpasses him.
Yeah, but do you as the GM actually think he's cooler, or are you just using him as a narrative device? Like, the cooler just means more powerful. Cooler. Right? Like, my stats are higher.
Yeah.
But other characters, like, their level 1 character they've invested their time in, like, I don't think a situation like that might necessarily emasculate those PCs, because like, it's almost like that's the hill to climb. Yeah. Whereas if you were to force Graknar to be in the party and give them orders and tell them to do things, and, you know, being like, no, this is the way to do this, and like, no, stand here and watch while I roll 100 dice to slay my own NPCs, you know, then the PCs start getting pissed. But like,
yeah, and just like to combine the points that were made here. I'm not sure exactly what the dynamic was when you were in the game where there was NPCs with you and they were kind of driving the point home and everything, and the bonds of friendship.
They weren't really driving. How can I put this? They were, like, thinking about it. Like, we talk about NPCs that are not cooler. The NPCs are not cooler than the PCs, but I think they were cool enough not to be forgotten and to be cared about, which I thought was most important.
Okay, but speaking from a game standpoint,
yeah,
who was running these NPCs? The GM?
The NPCs,
like, who's doing the dice rolls for them and deciding what, like, not what they do, because you said that they were directed by the party, but like
combat wise,
who's driving them?
Combat wise, it was us. Personality wise, it was the DM, because obviously those are his characters, and we didn't like.
Okay.
Because why would I allow the lawful good Warforged to punch a baby in the face, right?
Truth. Now, bringing that to your cardinal point that was brought up at the beginning, does that not break the never insert an NPC into the party rule that you had stated earlier?
No,
Because that's what I'm getting from this.
Because
These
I
are
didn't.
multiple NPCs put into the party.
Yeah, but that's not what I'm saying. Because you can have NPCs in the party, but you player characters. So, for example, a GM builds his ranger that he likes, his Malcor,
yeah, I understand
right?
what you're saying.
And so like he's like, guys, I'll just play Malcor with you, and he'll gain levels along with
Yeah.
you. And so like the
Which is
GM has, yeah, it's silly. This isn't like a little blurb of a write up or even a detailed write up of the backstory of a character that you want to basically be with the party and interact with them. This is a character that you personally are playing. Like you just like pop into character, start talking to the PCs with this character all the time. You start, you are invested in this in the way a player is invested in their character, rather than invested in it in the way that a GM should be invested. Which leads me to a very interesting question: what's the difference? What is the difference between the investment a GM has with their NPCs and the investment a player has with their PCs? Because I think that is the root of this rule, now that we're talking about it. So let's take a moment and think about that for a second, unless you have something to say.
I just wanted to interject too, like the incident that with the instance, with all the other NPCs that we had, and allies, might as well say, that we had made bonds with, and the PCs. The NPCs were obviously not used continuously, like they weren't always there.
Okay, I misunderstood that.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that it's like, because otherwise we'd end up with a group of 12 NPCs, and that would just be really, like 12 NPCs and 4 PCs, and it would just be really stupid.
And that's very sluggy. Yeah.
Yeah, it was for almost like an epic battle type of thing, and it was only one instance, whereas the PCs went through the entire campaign essentially with just us 4. And on occasion we met an NPC and we assist them. Like there was a time where we took a character by the name of Sigurd, and we fought Mother Hydra, and it was he wanted to have his grandiose last battle. So that we now became a party of 5, but we didn't have any more NPCs than just the 5. After the quest, he bid us adieu, and he said we would lend us our services or whatever. I'm kind of really just paraphrasing it, but it was an instance where we created that bond, and he said I would lend you my sword, and when the time came, we took it, and that was it. But the thing is that we also had to structure that. It wasn't mandatory that we had all these NPCs, but it was like, okay, we understand we're fighting a horde. We may die, and we almost did, because the NPCs were dropping like flies, and we almost did as well. And that was the big thing. You ever play? There was a game, Bryant. Sorry, yeah, I guess I can say that now because you've been doxxed.
Yes, I'm Bryant, aka Mekhalikhar, by the way.
Yeah. What was that game? It was the game with 108 characters.
Suikoden?
Yeah. So there's in the second, I think even in the first one. So you had your party, you chose your party, you went around, but at the end there was this epic battle, and it turned into a brief moments of a strategy game. That's what it was. So the party was the party, but all the allies they made did this massive mini game, and that's the only thing that happened. So then it helped shape that world of like, you know what, we got to make the decisions, defend these points. Who are we going to do? Who are we going to lose? So it created a very, very intricate narrative, a very interesting situation where we all felt a little bit sensitive to it. So,
see, and I kind of got like a Dragon Age feel from it, where like you're at your camp and you pick who you want to come with you on what.
Yeah, no, not the case at all. This is like, holy crap,
okay.
we need to do something, and sometimes we need to use NPC meat.
Gotcha.
Yeah, the game went from Final Fantasy to Ogre Battle.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Mekhalikhar, if you could repeat your question, we got a little off topic there, but that's okay.
Oh, yeah, the question was that we brought finally was what do you feel is the difference between player attachment to a character and GM attachment to a character? Like, how do you distinguish the two? Because we just sort of agreed, or I assume we agreed, that GMs with a player level attachment to player-like attachment to the character is bad.
Yeah.
To a specific character, and players. Well, and player attachment to a player character would be bad too. But I'm guessing, like, completely off tangent, it'd probably be a GM attachment to a player character would also be bad as well.
Yeah.
Well,
that's how you get favoritism.
Yeah. Yeah, it's how you get favoritism. And the other thing is that, like when I do up my NPCs, I know whatever I'm throwing in there is possibly going to die, get dismantled, or be used to be used, and sometimes even mocked or and completely desecrated. So, with that in mind, I mentally go, all right, I understand that this is a game, and I'm not going to be butthurt over any of that. I understand that sometimes the cities I do a backstory for, the NPCs I do a backstory for, may no longer exist after this game. And whereas with a PC, when I play, I do a elongated backstory, so I'm invested. So I don't feel like, so instead of just being some Joe Schmo, I actually feel like I need to the character needs to survive, and it helps me create and get into character, and like feeling invested as a player is important. Having a degree of detachment as a DM is important, because if I am overly attached to my NPCs, my buildings, my structure, like who knows, the PCs might figure out how to summon a meteor from the aether and smash into my whole setting and destroy it.
Yeah.
And you know what? Good on them, because whatever I make has the probability that it may get destroyed or used in a certain way where I might not want it to be used, and that's the reality of things.
So as a GM, you want your environment, your settings, your NPCs to pretty much all be disposable.
Well, in a way, yes, because the thing is that if people are playing, like, because chaotic stupid players do happen, right?
Of course.
So let's say the princess is greeting you and she's like, I am very happy to have met you, but I have a task for you, young warriors. And then the drow rogue throws a dagger at her face and it hits her. I'm not going to give her magical force field powers type of thing. Like,
no, because NPCs, they can't be omnipotent and they can't be indestructible.
No, unless
they're omnipotent and indestructible.
Unless they're omnipotent
and indestructible.
Yeah, and if
but nobody likes those NPCs.
See, the thing is though, is that those NPCs are sometimes important, because if you're level 1 and you meet, and for whatever god awful reason you meet the man with the canaries and you slap him on the ass and he becomes Bahamut and he tells you to F off, well, you know your place.
Yeah.
So.
No, but like as a player, I find those kind of NPCs extremely frustrating.
For sure.
And they breed a small act of defiance within myself and my character usually.
Yeah, character armor is very infuriating.
Yeah, because like I've been in scenarios where, say, some NPC has cheesed off the party, and we go to try and kill him, and suddenly our weapons are turned to flowers or something, and it's like, ugh. It's like, what do you mean I can't? Okay, I'm gonna punch the guy in the face, and they're like, oh, your hand is turned to jelly temporarily. It's like, all right, friend, come on, you're not a god, you're Mickey Mouse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you literally talking about that Mickey Mouse campaign?
I wouldn't worry about it, man. On the off chance you're listening, hi, Brienne.
You just doxed Brienne!
Yeah, buddy! Glaze the hams. Moving on.
Best inside joke around.
Perfect. So, okay. So, Swampy, you're saying disposability. Now, I guess the next sort of the logical question, or maybe in my logic, the question is, do you build NPCs that are created to lose?
When
you talk about disposability, are you making them to die, or are you making them?
Well, my question, I guess, like kind of like to answer with a question, I guess. If you make a mortal in a mortal realm, and part of being mortal, like part of your nature, is to die, then you know what? There's a probability of death, right? So why? I don't necessarily build them to. I don't build them with quests and endings in mind, because you know what? Sometimes that's abrupt, especially depending on the players.
But when you build a NPC, do you build them with the idea that the players are meant to defeat them? Or do you build them like so? Just
all right.
So I have more to say, I guess.
Just to clarify on that, are we talking like NPCs that are actively going to seek out conflict with the characters, or are we talking any NPC?
Okay, let me explain
like,
my
Fish Market
my
Bob,
thinking.
Yeah,
Fish Market Bob, I'm not going to build to to
die to the
lose
PCs.
to the player.
Yeah, because he's not even going to interact with them in that way.
He's just fish market.
He's going to
Bob.
fish market.
Yeah. He's going to try and sell them salmon.
If this was like a cast game, I guess you would say Fish Market Bob wouldn't be built to lose to the PCs because he's going to try to extract the best price from the PCs.
No,
as
but he
possible for his
definitely
fish.
could die to the PCs.
Yeah, but I'm talking about lose. So like he wants to negotiate with the PCs over the price of fish.
Okay.
Right? So the PCs, him losing would be he'll be like, "You're a noble adventurer," and they would just be like, "We're adventurers, free fish," and he'd be like, "Absolutely, sire. Have all of my fish. You've won this day of negotiations."
So what you're saying is, are you setting your difficulty checks outrageously high? Is Fish Market's Bob's difficulty check like 50, or is it a reasonable like 15?
Before we get into the fishmongering tangent, let me explain my thinking.
Okay.
Is it mahi or cod?
That affects the difficulty check.
Okay, let me explain my thinking. So, talking with Shooty at one point, I remember him saying something along the lines is he builds his NPCs, or he builds his challenges. So, like, we're going to talk about combat.
Yeah.
Okay, let's not get into the esoterra of ability checks or whatever.
Combat strictly.
Okay, and definitely not going to talk cast. When say Shooty mentioned once, and I don't know if he still does it, but he mentioned before, and it stuck with me, that when he builds NPCs, he builds them with the idea that they will fight the PCs and they will lose. Not that they may lose, they will lose. The PCs will come in, they will fight, and they will win. And so that's a different philosophy than what I use, which is I'm going to build an NPC and I'm going to build him to win. Like, if the PCs conquer this challenge, so be it. But he/she/it, if it's intelligent, will do its damnedest in the situation that it's given to annihilate these stupid usurpers or interlopers or whatever. Like, he's not going to... They're not there to lose. They're there to win. You're there to beat it. Butt heads, boys or girls. That's what it's for.
And you know what? I agree with your style of thinking with that, because like I don't make a villain with the idea that just a difficulty challenge is just going to wreck it. I think that having obviously they're going to have a insidious plot if they're a wizard or something like that, but I build them to win, but I build them realistically in the sense where they're not. There should be in my mind there should be a point in time where it is within challenge range of the players, not just, well, he's like you mentioned, omnipotent, indestructible beings. If I make a high level wizard, you want to be a high level to fight the high level wizard, especially who's been put out there that he is as such. Now, I build them to win, and they are actively going to try to win, because why wouldn't they? They're a villain.
Yeah. Okay. So disposability. When you say disposability, because this is what this was about, you're talking about just a detachment from the character to the point where it is always possible that, they have stats, so you understand that anybody could stab the fishmonger in the neck.
Of course.
Anybody could stab your super cool vampire lord that you spent 30 hours, creating with a cool backstory in the neck. So just step away from it. This is not your player. This is not your character. So be it.
And I've had those instances where I think I mentioned previously on other episodes that I have spent to the point where I am salivating at how good this is going to be, and then it's, oh sweet, earthquake. By the way, you were in an underground dwarven abandoned city. Guess you messed up, DM. Well, I did. Too bad, so sad on me. But I can't be mad at the fact that my players outthought that. And I also can't be mad that, ideally, when I have an NPC and I set him or her or, whatever the being is, to have this horrific presence, and then there's this awesome battle and I feel good about it. I love that. The end, if they die, that's awesome, because that is almost a death worthy of my time. Sometimes I don't get that, and I got to understand that, you know what? Sometimes sometimes the mightiest of heroes sometimes die on the toilet. So
Yeah. So, yeah, the coolness factor of an antagonist, and we sort of mentioned this earlier, is good. But that's not a player, and he's not with the party, and he's temporary, and it's being used as a narrative device for a challenge that's in front of the players. So the cooler the challenge, the cooler the triumph is over that challenge.
Yeah.
You know, and when we say cool, we don't mean strong. Like, yeah, strong is a thing, but like as long as the thing gives the PCs like, you know, it gives the PCs that sense that this is something worth our time.
Yeah.
You know, it's not just like, you know, Q from Star Trek, who's just some dork with a goofy nasally voice who just he turns your hands into jelly, and it's basically an impossible challenge.
Super character armor.
Okay, and you mentioned super character armor, sweeps week as we used to talk, the sweep character. So talking about disposability,
Yeah.
having a detachment from your character. There will always be NPCs that you might be extremely attached to. So let's talk about cameos. Okay? Are cameos okay? Let's say you have an old character that maybe some other players in your game, played a game with. Right? These are different. These players are playing different characters now.
Yeah.
But you're going to bring an old cameo in of a character you're attached to. Is this yes or this no? Is this good? This is bad? What's the dealio? Cameos.
I would say yes. It increases attachment to the game. However, as long as you understand that the character cameo is now an NPC and can be killed, then yeah, I'd say it's okay.
Okay. So once again, it's the detachment. Like as long as like these cameos are okay, personal attachment to the character is good, but you need a detachment, or at least a logical detachment from the character, so long as he's a player in the game.
Because I've played games where Swampy's been our GM, and he has done that. He's brought in cameos of old characters, and they're old favorites we all remember, and we're like, yeah, happy to see you, friend. But they're very temporary. They stay around as long as they're needed, and then they kind of fade away.
And I think, and I thank you for that, by the way. I think cameos are important in the sense, not just even a character, because kind of going back to when we talked about settings, like players have an effect on the setting. If a player's burned down a village, if players burn down a village in the one game I'm playing, and let's say I start up another campaign a year later, and you know what? The new PCs wander through a burnt down, desolate village. And you know what? There's some chuckles going on with it within the players, actually, like within the players, because they remember the time that they burnt down this village because the fish market man wouldn't give up his golden tooth.
It's familiar. It's comfortable.
Exactly.
It engages the players.
And
Or conversely, uncomfortable.
Yes.
Because to me, that's my strong point as a GM, is basically throwing down the you don't want to go here, it's dangerous, or this is a scary person. Like, then you never even encounter them. But I mostly because Shooty's in the games too, and there's a dynamic there where he's just like, oh no, whenever you bring something up. But usually I can set up a terror situation where where PCs feel like, this is really horrifying, like I don't want to deal with this challenge, or like maybe not I don't want to deal with it, but it's like they respect it enough that they're like, this needs more time and planning.
Well, and the players, if they have a well enough if they have completed your campaign, I'll get like an example is that and I ran a Pirates campaign with Captain Borgos Wagons, and you know what, the players who were the crew did an amazing job. And at the end, you know what? Everyone went their separate ways. Years later, you know what? The setting has had some changes, and the players have affected the setting. and one of them goes into a library and he sees the trilogy of the Adventures of Borgos Wagons, which is obviously a play on like
Borgo's a fixture in your campaign setting now, to the point where
Yeah,
like
but-
when I tried to run your game, he's the only NPC I could really think of other
He's
than
part
deities.
of the lore.
Yeah.
And that's also a thing where the players get to have that effect, right? So, for example, like once again, if a player's burn down a village, if a player's immortalized themselves, if a player wants to retire and become a guard captain, that's all well and good. That's part of the reward. So the players almost immortalize themselves in that sense. But it had and you have those NPCs that help facilitate that. It's because part of the reward isn't just the magic sword; it's the immortality. It's the immortality project, as some would say, in the game. So, like one of my characters, Randor, Alec ended up making him like a sub deity figure because of because he had landed the killing blow on Dagon. Lulth, and this was 4E, so you're able to do that because he decided to give monsters like god stats. Mother Hydra, like he had landed the killing blow on all these things, so he had marked that, and I totally forgot about them, and so I was rewarded with that. So now my character is now immortal within his setting, and that is something that me as a player I feel great about. If someone is able to reach high enough stature and do these things, why not reward them? Like, reward that cool.
I think it also bolsters the confidence of the player now playing a different character in the ways that they maybe want to live up to that character.
For sure.
And like, or it might even go the other way, because I know for a fact that you have brought Jax into the lore a couple times, just speaking of Jax, the insane Revenant Minotaur, and it's I don't want to go down that path. It's kind of a warning. And yeah, it makes the players want to better themselves as players, and it makes their new hero want to overshadow the old hero.
And not only that, like as you mentioned too, like it sets a standard too, where it's like, you know what, I need to get into character, I need to do well, I need to remember my backstory, and I need to play this game, and I need to strive for something.
Yeah.
And even if you're playing a slothful character, you got to be the best friggin' couch potato ever. So
Top tier couch potato, the kind of couch potato that people write stories about.
You get a +5 to lounging.
Leisure suit.
I got advantage in being stationary for 6 days.
Yeah, baby.
Okay, so antagonists, cameos. Cameos are good. They're actually great as long as they're not, once again, PCs. You know, the caveat obviously, as long as you're not trying to play it, as long as you don't have an attachment. So, talking here so far, we seem to think that player attachment to a character is about personal investment, desire to win, but a desire to win.
Well, what defines a victory, I guess, is what I would say.
Yeah, no, NPCs would have a desire to win. So this wouldn't work. But the first part is player attachment. So you're attached to your character. And the other thing would then also be a attention. Like, attention seeking for that character, I would say. And I don't know if we actually mentioned it, but I'm thinking about it right now. So attention seeking would be important. Like, your character is an attention seeker. So as a GM, the attachment to your NPCs, they shouldn't be attention seekers.
No.
You shouldn't be interrupting your players going, Jerry, the NPC, does this! And they're like, yep, but I was... Jerry, the NPC, climbs the wall easily!
Well, I think that like they can be... Well, if you want to emasculate... Like, I don't necessarily think like the demoralization, I'll say, of the PCs is necessarily a bad thing. Because, once again, Rodar the Paladin, right? He has demoralized you, and you are mad, and you know what? You are going to stab him in his sleep, and you're going to take his armor.
But now he's not your player. He's
No.
not cooperative with the players. And maybe that's another thing that adds to it. Because once he becomes antagonistic to the players, like even a passive-aggressive antagonism, like this Rogar, the Paladin character, you know, now he's a hurdle. And so he's not an NPC you're showing off. But you are showing, you're almost playing a psych game with your PCs. But like, if you have every intention of having that paladin basically be the enemy, then so be it. Because you're not attached to him in the way that you're invested in the character personally.
No, it's more as a GM, you're like, what you gonna do about it?
Yeah, what you gonna do?
Yeah.
Well, D&D to me is almost kind of a bit of a strange con game and / coercion at times, where you're not only playing the game, but you're playing the players. So you know that when you set up these character hurdles, that especially with someone, say, who's kind of who doesn't necessarily like their character doesn't like to be challenged, but them as a person. So you put these things out there. So for example, say if you have a character who, even if they're playing a wizard, and it's interesting, like you have a character who plays a wizard, maybe like they have it in their backstory that they're passive, but them as a person is not passive. The town guard comes in there and shakes them down for some copper, because you know what, it's a fee because you don't have your passport or some crap. And you know what, the person is different than the character, right? So it's almost like you play the player and use those NPCs to antagonize them in a situation, which is realistically manipulative. But at the same time, though, I've done it, and I've seen other DMs do it as well.
Fair.
Kind of a dick move, I guess, but at the same time.
So what I've got here is PCs, like a PC attachment is like they have a personal attachment, they are attention seeking, and they're cooperative. So NPCs, and I would say that you have to sort of meet all of these criteria for your NPC to sort of say that you're showing them off. I don't know, there's a feeling about, like, the stop showing them off line in here, sort of, it implies a certain, you know, you're attention seeking, okay?
Yeah.
So NPCs are not attention seeking, to the point where sometimes when they're joining with the party, you forget they even exist. Like, the party's fighting monsters, and then the PC's like, wait, what about that guy? He's just standing there.
Yeah, he's over there.
Oh yeah, okay. But like that's not good, but it's not bad either. I would say it's probably better to have them be dotted lines in these like situations than to have them always clog up the game with rolls. Like I get maybe even a throwaway line here and there is like he struggles with the goblin or something like that, you know, swinging hard, but you don't roll dice for them, or you know, and if you do, you know, make sure you don't have like 5 of these NPCs that you got to deal with. Like this is,
or just lump them like minions and they all swing at once.
Yeah, or figure some real easy way to ignore them, or to make them useful, or like goblins are coming from behind, we'll take the back, you know, something like that. Find some other challenge that the PCs don't have to worry about, you know, or we'll guard the rear, or something silly like that. And but yeah, so NPC, like PC attachment is a personal one, and it's an attention-seeking one, and it's a cooperative one. So having an NPC who the GM has a personal attachment to is a no-no, because now you're basically wanting it not to die, and you're gonna get the chance that you're gonna get crusty over its unglorious death, where it dies drowning in its own vomit. You know, this isn't going to be a happy day for you. You know, it's not attention seeking, because you don't want it to steal the spotlight from the players, which is part of what showing off is. You know, you don't want them to be attention seeking, and these NPCs are probably not going to be cooperative. If you're going to make it an attention seeking character, then it can't be cooperative, because then it's your PC. Then it's like your personal friend, you know. Or he's just, I'm helping the party out. Guys, look at me, how cool I am. Like, this is that. Unless he's the villain, which in this case, this is a passive-aggressive villain, like this paladin that all the PCs are just like, he freaking got us again! You know, he keeps stealing all the kills, or whatever. I don't know what kind of game is running where everyone gives a shit about kill stealing, but maybe everybody's really, like, egocentric in that game. It's like kind of an evil party. And
maybe you gotta take, like Diablo, you take monster ears or whatever.
Yeah, maybe. Like, who knows? Like, or he gets all the treasure. He's like, I got the kills, I get the treasure. You know, and they're just like, oh, god dang it.
It's kind of a Castle Crashers where you get the princess at the end type of thing. Where
yeah, maybe he's the one getting all the princesses.
Yep.
But anyway, yeah, and so NPC attachment is one of a disjoint. Like you may like the character, you may have printed backstory for the character, and you may even personally enjoy the character, but as soon as you've entered him into the world, you know that he's dead.
Yeah.
Like, or even if he doesn't die, he's no longer writing the story that you're narrating, like not narrating, but you're working with now. Like, if he's working on another story and you just tell the PCs about his story once in a while in passing, like tavern rumors, that's one thing. But the story that the PCs are into right now, he is not weaving that story, or she is not weaving that story.
Would you say that he's past his primary relevancy?
Yeah, in this story.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Like, if his story is Slay the Dragon, your story is to stop the pirates.
Yeah.
Right? And you're just hearing about him slaying a dragon in the background, and like maybe you came into town and, it just so happened that they're having the festival of dragon slaying because this guy slayed the dragon, and he's a cool guy and everybody thinks he's awesome, and you guys are still fighting these pirates, and you're just like, I will get our day one of these days. Like, he's not interfering with the story of the players. He's just sort of enriching the story. Like, he's just enriching in the environment. Like, now they're in on a festival, and if they feel all pissy about it and they're sad, and that's awesome. That's good. We want that, because now the PCs are like, this guy's a piece of shit. He's a nobody. Why is he killing dragons? Well, we could have killed a dragon. Come on, that's nothing. No, let's see him against 200 pirates. Yeah? Huh? Yeah. And if they're not salty and they just drink with this guy and they make friends with him, that's cool too. But if that's the case, don't bring this guy into the party. And if you do, don't give him levels, don't make experience, don't micromanage this guy. This guy's just a dotted line in the background, giving advice or like helping out when the party needs a little helping hand here.
Yeah.
It's like, death blow's about to happen, he pushes them aside and puts up the shield, and they, they're at 3 hit points still.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah, something almost where the party isn't meant to not to say necessarily not meant to succeed, but not meant to get obliterated type of situation like you're mentioning.
Yeah, I guess that's the other thing would be then, PC attachment is about story writing. You're writing the story as the player, right? So if you, as the NPC, if the GM as an NPC is trying to write the story with his NPC, like, almost treat players are pens, and NPCs are paper, right? And all the setting pieces are paper. So if you're trying to use your NPC like a pen or a pencil, then you're doing it wrong. Then you're playing show and tell. And I think that would be the best analogy I can think of for the attachment, right? Because as a PC, I expect to be writing my story, or I'd be following along in a story of my choosing.
Yeah, you don't want to end up in a situation where you're... reminds me of kids that they make up imaginary friends and they tell which one is better, but one of those kids is the DM. You know what I mean? Yeah,
and see, that's the problem we want to avoid, and that's the easy sort of like we all came to this that part of the conclusion early on.
Yeah, exactly.
But like, what are we saying is what I was trying to explore there. Like, because we all sort of agree, and we're trying to attack this right now. Like, what is okay, what's not okay, and
see, now just speaking to your analogy of the pen and paper, like, maybe not using them as a pen, but like if there was a scenario where, let's say, you guys are writing the story, but you run into a patch of paper that's already scribbled all over it because there's this here NPC.
Yep.
Now, taking from that example, is this NPC so important to the GM that the story can't really survive without them?
Yeah. Did you just put the Mona Lisa down and told them you're not allowed to paint on the Mona Lisa?
Yeah.
And I would say if you are doing that, then you're doing it wrong. This, once again, now that's another you're doing it wrong, because remember, these pencils are going on this paper, and if you've put the Mona Lisa down and you're saying no, you cannot write on the Mona Lisa, and even though, like, assuming that this guy, like, you can write a little bit on the Mona Lisa, not mar it too much. But you start really, like, the guy takes his pencil, throws it away, and pulls out a painter's brush, for walls, or a roller, and he's like, time to roll over this. Be prepared for that, because they're the ones who are marking up the page. You decided you were going to put the Mona Lisa down in front of them, whether they paint roller it with white. Yeah. That's up to them. Now, be prepared for that.
Expanding on that, what would you do in that scenario? Because, like, I've had a scenario where, say, these people were in a town, they were in a position where they needed to find a member of the Thieves Guild, which who operate in stealth, and are difficult to find just
Sure.
offhand.
Yeah.
But one of them, happenstance, tried to rob the party, wherein instead of being like, hey, we need your help, they just kidnapped him.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, and is
So
this
what-
this particular thief, like, is he really important to me? Like, he's my...
No, he's
like,
not. He's not important to you, but he's
Jimmy
important to the
Fingers.
story, right? Because like instead of recognizing that, hey, this is a member of the Thieves Guild, the party was kind of like, well, we're just gonna f this guy up.
Okay, did they kill him?
They beat him up real bad now, but now see the thing.
How did
is-
that impede the story, other than
See,
they
it's
lost their
impeding
lead?
the story that they lost their lead, because where are you gonna find another Thieves Guild guy?
Well,
Is
they
one
should have
just
thought of
gonna-
that before they ruined their
Exactly.
lead.
So is that my question is that bad GMing,
No.
or is that shitty players? Excuse my
No. Okay, let me touch on that then, because you asked me. I would say it's neither, because the players were playing in character, and the story that they wove was that they decided to beat the crap out of their one contact in the Thieves Guild. This guy's like I'm assuming you'll never get the answer out of him ever again.
No.
Like if he's gone, he either went low, like he got away and went low, or you beat him so that he doesn't speak anymore and he eats from a straw. Like one or the other, or he's dead.
Yeah.
You know, he's not coming back. You know,
So my question is, are you at a dead end now
No.
as a GM, or should you just
Well-
cheesily write in, oh, there's another Thieves Guild guy over
no,
here?
you know what? No,
'Cause
force
they-
the PCs
they
to figure it out.
screwed
They
themselves over.
built a hurdle for
Yeah.
themselves, and you're like, "There's your hurdle now."
Yeah.
Now you did that. The Thieves Guild guy's gone, and they're like, "Well, what do we do?" It's like, "Well, you can always just not do this journey. You can always just not do the
Go do
Thieves Guild,
something
or you
else,
can
yeah.
find
Maybe
something else."
maybe the Thieves Guild's pissed, and there's your new antagonist.
Oh yeah, maybe.
The
There's
oth-
another thing, yeah.
The other thing though, I'd mention is that if I was in that situation, if I knew my players, if I knew the characters, but also the players well enough, where they're going to break this man's hands, and he is now going to reside in the ditch until he is dead, I would not write anything past that until I figured out what the players did, like what the players wanted to do with this guy. So they have the interaction with the Thieves Guild dude. Now, let's say they make it combative and they murk the guy,
Yeah.
right? I don't want to be that DM that wrote like 6 hours of quest involving this guy, because that's just wasting my time as well, right?
That's rule 1 broken.
That's rule.
You
one.
just wrote 6 hours of quest. Talk about wasting your time. They just killed the NPC.
Exactly.
Your storytelling just got shoot off.
Well, and that's a thing, and that's where like your first rule kind of comes into play. Whereas like,
Now you as the GM are all despondent.
well,
You're
that's
just like,
one of the
"Oh,
reasons.
this is problem."
That's one of the
See,
reasons.
I've
Like,
been in this scenario because you were actually in the campaign where this happened, where you guys captured the thief, and then you just started pink bellying him instead of asking him for information.
I did.
Yeah.
Man, I'm cool. I think I was mad. at
Yeah,
him.
yeah, you were
like as a
mad.
character, like my character
Well,
was
he robbed you.
was I playing Tobias Tenderfoot?
No, you were playing that guy that was like, yeah.
Oh, Daku
Yeah,
Kenclaw,
Daku
the
Barda.
Kenku thief.
You got out-thiefed, and I think you were mad about that.
Yeah, and it is standard Kenku tradition on his isle to pink belly as a sign of admiration.
Now, see, going back to my question, is that my shortcoming as a GM, or was that what the fuck?
Oh.
Sorry.
Well,
you know,
did the game end?
No, the game didn't end.
The
But
game's still ongoing.
the thing is that's me. That was me probably being a little bit chaotic, stupid, and I
Yeah.
do admit that sometimes on a lack of sleep I'll get there.
Whatever.
But whatever, yeah, it's fine. All well and good.
PCs do that.
But the thing is that I've had, or you mentioned PCs where you've had this idea, and then they're like, you just have to speak to the wizard. They egg the wizard's hut, and they urinate and kill his plants, and they also light fire to, I don't know, his well or something ridiculous. But they light the well on fire.
Well, going back to
Put
the
some
conundrum.
kerosene in it.
Going back to the conundrum.
Yeah.
Assuming he's dead, now you may have to deal with the Guild of Necromancers.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Well, we don't know what the guild. Maybe the Guild of Necromancers is more
Maybe
annoying
you-
than the
maybe you
Guild of
run away.
Thieves. Maybe they're, Or, you know, if you want to get a new thief, it's like, okay, well, you ruined the first one, but now you got to get a new thief. Well, now they got to deal with the problem of getting a second thief. Well, the second thief is part of the Thieves Guild that just saw their buddy there get
I think I resolved it actually by arresting them because they were in an area where magic was prohibited.
Yeah.
And one of the party was like, I'm going to throw a magic missile at the escaping thief. And then everybody came and attacked them.
So what ended up happening was the narrative totally changed from this story that you wrote about the thief to like, you guys did a thing, you found some robber, and then you got arrested by the cops. Like, now your story's not about this thief anymore. No. Your story is about these guys in jail.
Yeah, and you know what though? That's the thing is that
pooping in buckets.
And like in my mind,
like heroes.
NPCs can both be antagonistic and reactive, and that's really important to keep in mind. They can't just. They shouldn't outshine your players, but they certainly should not be stationary. And they should not be... Because like, they get reactions too. Like, if you break the thief's hands, he's not going to want to deal with you. If you buy him a pitcher of mead and you talk him up and you earn his trust, then maybe you earn that, right? But that's the thing, is that's more or less life lessons, real-life consequences. Same in any other... if I... punched you in the face right now, the cops would be called on me, right? Well, then
I probably won't go.
Well, example, right?
Well, that's part of the story.
Well, that's part of the story. Swampy punched the Barbarian in the face, and maybe Swampy goes to the table. But fact of the matter is that there's your story because there's your point, right? Regardless of what you have planned, players, as all three of us know, will sometimes railroad where you initially have planned, and you're like, okay, now I got to think on my feet, right?
You know, I would say that the only flaw you made in that situation as a GM is spending 5 hours too many on that plot because they just derailed it.
It was 20 minutes.
Oh, okay. Well, then there you go.
Well, I think they're like.
Well, then you did nothing wrong.
I'd like to trail back to a point you made though.
Sure.
I disagree with the statement NPCs should not be stationary because some NPCs should be stationary.
Yeah, you're right. I think some, like, thinking about it, yeah, some should. Like,
Tom the Innkeeper should always be Tom the Innkeeper.
Yeah, but, like, the traveling bard will never always... Well, maybe, but the traveling
That's
bard...
not necessarily true.
Yeah, but, like, because the thing is, like, maybe what if he gets stabbed, right? But whatever.
What if Tom the Innkeeper retires one day and it's just like a point of flavor that you did? It's like you come in and Tom's gone. And like, where's Tom?
Then it's a
like,
family
Tom
business
left.
and his daughter Moira's running the business now.
Whatever.
Yeah,
or
so
like
now
his
it's
buddy
Moira the
Jimmy.
Innkeeper.
Or-
It's the same character, essentially. It's just a different gender and age.
Yeah, but it's not stationary.
It's stationary.
That's not the same.
If you go to the Queen's Blessing
because I might want to
Tavern-
bang Moira, the tavern keeper.
You could bang Tom!
Yeah, but I'm not into banging Tom because my character doesn't swing that way.
Well, there you go. Moira's still stationary. If you go to the Queen's Blessing Tavern, you're always going to find one of Tom or Tom's family members.
Roles should be stationary.
Yes.
Roles should
Well,
be...
sure, like that, and that makes sense, and that's part of that character.
Yeah.
But
Or
you know,
Bob the fish market guy is always going to be at the docks.
I might have a wandering merchant.
Yeah.
You know the trope I like to use sometimes, or not trope, but like the character I like to use is a giant, a big cloud giant that just goes around town to town selling things, and he'll just show up and be like, "Hey guys, you want to buy cool stuff?"
I think that's still stationary in a role.
Okay.
He's still
In a role.
always the cloud merchant, regardless of location.
Yeah.
If Tom sold the Queen's Blessing and moved across town to the Smoky Bottle Inn, he's still Tom the bartender at the Smoky Bottle now.
What if he's like, I don't want to be a
point.
bartender,
Yeah.
I want to blow glass. Well, it's like now he's
He's Tom the black glass blower, but all his knowledge and intuition and stuff is still within him.
And, well, then he wasn't a barkeeper in the first place. Is basically that seems what you're getting at. Is like the character shouldn't. I don't know what you're getting at. I'll agree with you because I think that's the points of Nothing Burger.
I'm getting at that characters, NPCs you create should be stationary in their knowledge, skills, history, etc. They should be stationary in their roles in the plot, regardless of where you put them.
Oh, I would disagree. Because, like, if you wrong Tom the barkeep by burning down his inn,
Yeah.
his role in the plot has changed. He's not going to be all like in the ruined wreckage of his inn, being all like, "Greetings, travelers. Would you like an ale?" He's going to be all like, "I will get my revenge," or he'll be like, "I'm ruined."
Yes.
You know, one or the other. But then in this case, his role has shifted. He is now Tom the Vengeful.
Well, now, but
Come on, John.
realistically speaking, is 75-year-old Tom, because apparently he's retiring soon, is he really, really that interested in vengeance, or is he going to move on, find another inn, and let the guards take their vengeance by putting out a warrant on you?
Well, maybe, but it depends on who Tom is. Like, now we're talking about who this imaginary
And
character
see,
is.
that's the point I wanted to touch on, is how far should a GM flesh out the NPCs?
As far as it's relevant to the plot. Like I said, you burn down Tom's inn, he's 75 years old, he gives the warrant and sends the guards. You slay the guards, and the guards are ineffective. He goes, this is ridiculous, takes on his savings, starts hiring assassins. The assassins
There you
fail.
go, man.
Now, but Tom's no longer stationary in the plot, though. He is
But-
totally changing. His world is changing as you succeed or fail.
If Tom has a family, he has other responsibilities, and he's not going to be spending all his money on assassins. He is going to go buy another inn.
Maybe his family's livelihood. Now his family's going out and doing things, trying to... Like, now they're becoming adventurers to get easy money so that they can
Exactly.
hire assassins
So
to kill
Tom,
you. Or
Tom
they're
is
going
too
out
old.
to kill you.
Tom's too old to carry. 75 years old. He's well beyond the age you should be in
Okay,
medieval
well,
times.
you as a GM then just chose to, like, have Tom.
Yeah.
Guys,
Tom kill himself.
we just made Tom cooler than the PCs.
Tom is way cooler than the PCs now.
That's not true, because
We
he's
talk
not-
about Tom way more than the PCs.
Yeah, but I don't know what the PCs are. And the PCs are the ones who made Tom the way he is, so...
Okay, so follow-up question. Can the PCs themselves, instead of the GM, make an NPC cooler than themselves?
Yeah. I would say that that's fine, but that's like PCs accepting plot, right? This is the whole Wendell Wilkinson idea that I brought up a couple sessions ago. It's like, you make this character, like, I made this Wendell Wilkinson character, he was a guild leader, and he was literally Droopy Dog with a sword.
Yeah.
But by the end of the campaign, they had hyped him up so much that he was essentially, in theory, a super assassin, like, ultimate samurai who could cut down 1,000,000 men in one blow. But I was just like, hey guys, could you, like, go out and do this quest? Like, that is all he was. But by the end of the campaign, these guys were like, no, Wendell will rip us apart. We don't go against Wendell. And the PCs hyped him up. But that's the PCs making themselves cooler by basically subserviating themselves to an NPC of their choosing.
Yes,
like,
but-
they're the ones who are choosing that role, and the only thing that's cooler about Wendell Wilkinson is their reverence to him, and that reverence is something that makes those PCs cool too.
Now, because they put reverence on him, because they've hyped him up, and the GM is the one driving the NPC that's been turned into a godlike idol form, do you not have the right as a GM to show that character off?
No. Like,
And why not?
no, because once Wendell Wilkinson, like, when I was saying showing off, and like what we were talking about is this idea where he starts attention stealing, where he starts taking attention from the players. Wendell Wilkinson in that game, he was always, every time, Droopy Dog with a sword. He would come in, he wouldn't do anything fancy. So, and that was part of the magic of Wendell Wilkinson, because everybody sort of half believed, half didn't believe. They believed if they believed hard enough, he would be awesome, and they made him cool. They made him the coolest character that we're talking about him on a bloody YouTube video.
Yeah.
And he was literally Droopy Dog with a sword.
Okay.
And in that case, it wasn't the GM. That wasn't my character anymore. That was their character. They made him that way. And that was their character that they invested their affections to. And once again, as a result, he transcended, like, settings.
Yeah.
Like, he became a character fixture in that setting I played, and then in somebody else's setting, they imported that character, so he ended up in multiple settings.
So he's kind of just, at this point, he's no longer an NPC. He's more like lore or legend.
Yeah, but never was he shown up. Never did he draw that sword and slay 10,000 men. It was always that he could. People believed he could.
All right.
And then as the GM, when I started rolling with it, I made the NPCs believe he could too.
I can see.
So it's
your
like,
point.
Wendell puts his hand on his sword because he's worried. All the NPCs take a step back, and then the PCs are like, see, they know. And so, but like, once again, that enhances their characters too, because they've chosen to revere this guy, and then make that a trait that they revere this character.
See, even though, like, even in the scenario where that is now kind of their character, their myth, legend, whatever, I would say that exact scenario where you're like, Wendell puts his hand on his sword, all the NPCs back up. I would categorize that as showing him off.
Yeah, but
Because you have now you've made his renown canon.
but he's not cooler than the PCs, is what I would say.
I think he's cooler than the PCs.
Well, you don't know who you don't know who the PCs are.
That's true. I don't.
But you know,
If
he
there's
might be
some-
more. He might be in theory more powerful than the PCs,
Yeah.
sure. But he's not cooler because the PCs are the ones who are always having the spotlight. Maybe in that one scenario, in that one blurb, that disposable blurb, right? Yeah, he was cooler, but I never showed him off. I didn't roll a die for him. Hell, I never wrote stats for Wendell Wilkinson. I think his character sheet consisted of me doing this: Wendell Wilkinson, guild leader of the guild the PC's named. There you are. It was like the Wendell Wilkinson Guild. And like,
That's a horrible name.
yeah, it was trash, and that's what he is. That's all he was a name on a page, and I don't even think I took notes about him. This is all like word of mouth lore that ended up passing over, and I never wrote stats for him. I never did anything for him. You know, even the hand on the sword idea was an example. But even still, even if that did happen, you know, I wouldn't have shown him up. Like,
Okay.
like the most that would have happened is he cuts through them easily and puts his sword away and goes down. It wouldn't be like, you know, he draws his weapon and like blocks the attack, goes forward, swings it. It's like 13 minutes of me explaining, 20 minutes, an hour of me explaining this constant battle. And the PC's like, I walk behind Wendell Wilkinson. It's like, we try to help him. He doesn't need your help. You know, he swings his blade and 5 buildings fall down. You know.
All right.
He didn't need a guild in the first place. Why are you even in this game? This is Wendell Wilkinson can solve the world's problems just by looking at them.
I will agree to the rule then.
All right. So
I
I guess
agree to rule 3-4.
yeah, rule 3+1.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll learn some video editing.
3.5.
3.5. So with that said, let's do some closing comments between the three of us. I'll start with you, Swampy, and then we'll go to the Barbarian, and then I guess I'll make some closing comments.
Yeah, I guess don't try to outshine your PCs. The story, like, people are there to have fun. They're there to have a time, as are you. And with that in mind, doing things like setting in NPCs are, of course, very important. But you're also there to facilitate a good time, and that's my own personal take on it. Remember to do so. And it's nice to, for me personally, it's nice to have a setting, create NPCs, and have players interact with them as they so choose. Character armor is a personal pet peeve of mine. If I want to stab your bartender, you better damn well expect me to do it. And yeah, that's more or less me.
The Barbarian?
I guess I would have to say from all this, all I can say is NPCs should follow secondary character rules. They should have their own stories, motivations, goals, etc. That being said, they are secondary characters in the game. They should speak only when spoken to, or if the characters are upsetting the status quo.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I think this rule, I can't really see. You know, it's a bit broad, but looking back on University Bryant's sort of characterization of this rule, it seems to be fairly spot on. Like, you know, I think when I wrote this, I was thinking of a specific game. And it was like a Star Wars game, and there was literally a half-an-hour battle between 2 NPCs that we just got to watch, because we were both all Jedi apprentices, and this was like a Jedi Master versus a Sith Lord. And if we would have even drew our sword against them, the Sith Lord could have just killed us instantly. So we literally ended the game by watching somebody else fight. And, yeah, it was bad. And that was probably one of the worst games I had ever played. It was a real tragedy, because it was a pretty cool game for the most part.
Well, it's like it's like going to slam poetry. I'd rather do that.
Yeah.
Maybe like
Yeah.
If I'm there to play, I'm there to play. If I'm there to listen, like, I'll go do a speech or some slam poetry. Or
Yeah,
something
everybody's invested in their characters, and PCs kind of want... They're playing for their characters for the most part. Like, you know, it's the odd case that the players are playing for your beautiful story, and... Basically, building these NPCs and using them as PCs is just another way of, as the pen analogy is, paint your own story. And once you start doing that, and you start like scratching over the players' story with your little scribblings and all other stuff, the PCs start to feel despondent, and your game has a much higher chance of falling apart, which is what these rules, all of them, seem to be trying to avoid. So, once again, your characters are not cooler than theirs, and stop showing them off. So, next episode, we'll just go into it. Next episode is a bit racier. It's going to be a bit of an interesting discussion. I don't know exactly how we're going to go about it, but we'll probably do it much like this one. The rule for next episode will be episode 5. Hopefully I'll actually change it. Torture, rape, and sexual encounters should fade to black. Their danger is too great. So once again, thank you for listening to the Delirium Engine, and you guys all take care and have yourselves a great night.